day 1000 and I look up and see that Vladimir Putin just signed a revised nuclear doctrine today saying that any attack on Russia supported by a country with nuclear power, us, could be grounds for a nuclear response. That's frightening stuff. Daniel Davis, welcome back to the 55 KRC Morning Show. It's always a pleasure having you on the show.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me back. And ordinarily, I'd be a little more jubilant about being on your show, but goodness gracious, because what you just said is coupled with the reported first use of long-range ATACMS weapons inside Russia, 1,000 kilometers deep inside of Russia. And those things coming together on the 1,000th day of war, in my view, is the most dangerous place we've been since this thing began. Because in essence, what we have done by Biden allowing these weapons to be used is to call Putin's bluff. And so now we have put Putin in a position, are you going to make good on your previous threats that if long-range weapons were used, you would consider a direct participation by the West in the war and take commensurate action? Or is he going to back down? Is he just going to make this statement about, change nuclear doctrine and that's it? Or is he going to actually do something? That's the position that we have put him in right now. And that's a bad place to be, and an incredibly irresponsible move on the president. I have demurred for the most part. When Biden has done things over his nearly 4 years now in office, but this is the most egregious and unnecessary risk that he has taken to date.
Well, and that was going to be the basis of my initial question to you before Putin announced this new strategy or this new protocol. Why did Biden approve the use of these longer range missiles into the interior of Russia? Everybody knows that we're in control of them. Everybody has been paying attention to the issue knows they require American soldiers using to operate them because of the sophisticated nature of them, as well as the proprietary and I guess high level security clearance you need to be able to connect with the resources that allow them to work and be accurate. All of it suggests, you think about advisors in Vietnam, welcome to advisors in Ukraine. That's what we're doing. That's what we're there. And since they launched them, clearly we have something to do with it.
Yeah, and you're specifically talking about military personnel.
Yes.
The U.S. Armed Forces have to be participating. So, i.e., what Putin said turns out to be accurate. And listen, you asked the reason why. Why would Biden do this? The ostensible claim in both the Wall Street Journal and the Washington Post when this news broke that the permission had been given, the unnamed senior administration officials said it's because of North Korea. It's because they have 10,000 troops there, and this is to send a signal to Pyongyang, not to Moscow. Except now then, these missiles were not fired around the Kursk area where the alleged, by the way, still not have been independently confirmed they're actually there, but 1,000 kilometers in the Bryansk area, i.e. nowhere close to where the North Korean troops allegedly are. So that puts to the lie the claim that that's the reason they were being used. So we have some real difficult questions to answer here, and I really hope that the media puts President Biden's feet to the fire on this and says, hey, what are you trying to do? Because there is no, and I mean zero, military utility and using a handful of long-range weapons at this point, nearly 3 years into the war, on the 1,000th day. It's not going to make any difference. And by the way, Secretary of State Austin on 6th of September expressly stated that it's not going to make a difference in the war. It won't change anything on the front lines. We don't have enough missiles. UK and France don't have enough missiles to have a sustained engagement that it would be required for long-range missiles. You can't do it with a few one-offs. As you saw, most of them got shot down, if not all of them. And now here we are at a possible red line crossing.
I find it hard that we see that we're staring over the brink of this moment in history, and it does not look good. Now, the troops, and I'm not going to defend North Korea in any way, shape, or form. I'm not going to defend Russia in their active assault on Ukraine, and they attacked them and they invaded them, and I understand all that. But there's nothing illegal necessarily, unless in fact the North Koreans have been on the front lines and are literally fighting the Ukrainians. And I think there's a big question mark swirling about that. Maybe you can answer that. But if there's a whole bunch of North Koreans somewhere in Russia, what's the big deal unless they actively engage in war? So you're shooting into the interior of Russia in order to perhaps go after a target that doesn't have any military use or purpose, could possibly if they started engaging in combat. But you're talking about a finite amount of missiles with a limited impact in terms of their destructive power, most of which, as you pointed out, got shot down. This seems to be an absolutely pointless gesture.
100% it is. And I think I've said on some of the previous episodes that we've been on together that the Russians, a long time ago when the HIMARS systems came in, because they have a very similar guidance system, et cetera, their electronic warfare had basically rendered them meaningless. You hardly ever hear about a HIMARS strike anymore. It's not that we don't give them missiles, it's that they don't hit the target. And the same with the ATACMS. We gave permission on a limited basis for that near the front some number of months ago. You don't hardly ever hear anything about ATACMS missiles because Russia has figured out how to deflect or shoot down most of them. So then the question is, why in God's name then, with something that has very limited, even tactical utility, would you want to allow something to be fired at a strategic depth? And this was fired at, by the way, at a base where a missile depot were housed. It had nothing to do with North Korea at all, not even allegedly. It was a missile depot in Russia, and they were trying to take that out. That's according to the Ukrainian military. They released that this morning. So then you get back to again, your very pointed question. What is the point here? What are you trying to accomplish? Because there is nothing of value militarily that you can gain by this, but there is enormous potential for escalation because Russia would respond against us, which is what they have claimed. That's why I'm saying I'm so worried because we have put Putin in a place. You don't want to put a caged bear in a position to either have to fight or flight because it's likely he's going to fight.
Yeah, he does seem to be a bit of a loose cannon, Daniel Davis. Now, as to my understanding also is that Russia recently entered into a mutual defense treaty with North Korea. So if one gets attacked, the other will run to its defense. Are we in that moment in time as well? Did I read that correctly?
That is correct. I mean, they had a number of agreements had already been signed in the military sphere, especially with coordination and equipment had been coming over. And my belief, my speculation, because I don't have any hard facts to back this up with, but I suspect that North Korea probably said, "Hey, let me send some of my troops over there to get some combat experience, or be trained by your combat experienced guys, so that I can train the trainer kind of thing, and make my whole force better based on modern combat techniques." That makes some sense because it doesn't make any sense that Russia, is a sign of weakness, which so many in the West want to characterize this, claiming, "Oh, well, see, they don't have enough troops." No, right. They have enough troops. There is no shortage of troops in Russia. In fact, that number continues to grow. So this might be something that Kim Jong-un wanted in exchange for all these rockets and ammunition that they've been sending to Russia, not that Putin needs them. So, if that's what they're trying to do, then that's the situation. And it could be for North Korea, not for Russia's benefit. Primarily.
Well, I believe it is for North Korea's benefit, and ultimately that comes back to North Korea and South Korea, which obviously have had their problems of their own since the end of that, or the whatever that conflict was, whatever we call that conflict, the Korean War. I think we loosely refer to it as, although there was no declaration. All right, I don't want to have to move away from Russia. I saw that the Swedes announced to their citizenry to prepare for nuclear war, not as a very unsettling thing, and also that internet cable that was severed just the other day as well. Obviously, a revelation of, to me, how easy it is to accomplish such a devastating have something have such a devastating impact, which really amounts to taking a pair of pliers and cutting a cable. I know it's more complicated than that, but that just happened the other day with one of these undersea internet cables. That could happen on a broader scale and be unbelievably complicating from a global perspective.
It could. That's been one of the concerns that many people have been voicing for the last couple of years, actually, that if things got bad enough, Russia has the capacity, as a state with submarines, that they can take out nearly anything that they want to anywhere, and would have a crippling effect economically on the West, certainly the United States, but the West in general. And by the way, just as a point here, I was perusing the headlines in the Russian media just before coming on here, and it said that there is a large scale use of expanded nuclear shelters being built throughout Russia, and there's this big push on for that. So they are concerned about that and are taking actions as well on the Russian side.
Wow. I wish I could walk away from this conversation, feel a little more comfortable about global affairs, Daniel Davis, but today I don't think I am. And sadly, we're out of time. I wanted to get to Israel and what's going on there. We can save that for another day. And hopefully that day will be next Tuesday when we do another edition of the Deep Dive with Daniel Davis. Daniel, it's been a real pleasure, as it always has been, to get your knowledge and your expertise on things military. And we'll do it again next Tuesday, my friend,
Always a pleasure, my friend. Thank you.
as it is for me.